Well, hello. This is your host, Ed Parcaut of Real Estate Jerky radio show and the live we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Today's guest is Tom Bryant, and he was on the radio last weekend, and he has a lot of knowledge, and I thought I'd bring him back on to talk about some more stuff. He laughs because it's funny how we have knowledge and we don't understand the knowledge we have, or we don't think people like what we have, right, or care about what we say. But Tom says some things that make you say, and those usually are good things. Tom, thanks for being on today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Ed. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And then, we talked about how, tragic events control the markets, how tragic events can change certain things. We talked about that on the radio. We can talk about it a little bit now. My big question I've been getting asked constantly is, are we going to have inflation, and how's it going to affect the market? How's it going to affect interest rates? And the first thing I say is, I have no idea.
That's the wisest thing we can say. Do you want to start with inflation?
Sure, let's start.
Inflation is here.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. I was reading this morning that the CPI has jumped to 5.3%. We were looking at 2 or 3% prior to the COVID deflation period. We're having month over month of like 0.3, 0.4%. We actually had last month 0.3, but the month over month our estimates are 0.4. But I'm not really sure we're getting accurate descriptions of what inflation is, because a lot of these numbers are excluding some of the key things that cause us pain, and that's energy and home prices. I saw that the big ones are used car prices, because there's a lack of inventory of new cars. Used car prices have gone up dramatically, almost 18%. Energy is up 20%, and apparently travel is really inflated. And I just bought some airline tickets yesterday, and I paid about $1,800 for some round trip airfare, to which I usually pay $600 or $700 to go to the East Coast. And hotel accommodations have gone way up. So those things are not included in the core CPI. And so I really don't think that the inflation numbers indicate what we've felt in the last 6 to 8 months, partially because of the new administration. Those would be the energy costs. And also housing prices, as you know, are just ridiculous. We had this conversation about 5 or 6 months ago, and I said, I think inflation will have a blip. It'll go up some, and then it'll level off. The question now is, will it calm down? Has the growth that we've experienced in terms of the cost of living over the last 5 to 6 months or this year, will that continue, or have we reached a peak and will it begin to subside? And the answer is, I hope so. But I don't know for sure. No one, anyone tells you they're positive is a fool. So I'm telling you that I hope it subsides. It seems to be slowing down a little bit, maybe partly because of the Delta variant that's coming through, maybe because the pent-up demand has exhausted itself and it's run its course, but I'm not sure.
You were talking about our CPI, Consumer Price Index, right? Just so in case somebody doesn't know what that means. You assume everybody knows all of our little acronyms. But you were talking about how the cost of plane fares went up. Well, I wonder if that's because they can't get enough people to work. I mean, you run into that. I'm down in San Diego now at a conference. I mean, the conference usually has 7,000 people, and we're lucky to see 1,600 running around here. And one of the biggest issues is they don't have enough staff. They can only clean your room every other day, right? Because they don't have the staff. They don't have certain things. So do you think that the inflation that we're seeing in the airlines and the tickets and the hotel room is because of the lack of staff, and they're raising the prices to have less people come?
Well, now we're talking about the price of the CPI, or are we talking about?
No, we're talking about. So I was just explaining what CPI was.
Okay.
No, you were saying you paid $1,800 for tickets that normally cost you $600 or whatever.
Right.
My question is that, you think that's fuel? Do you think that's this lack of people being able to work?
Fuel's up about 25 to 30%. Also, they're only about a 40% of the people that were flying are flying because of the COVID, the Delta variant. But let's go back and talk about what the consumer price index is. The price, because you said, you and I throw this number around, but a lot of people may not know. The consumer price index is, and I'm reading this from Google, is a price index, the price of weighted average market basket of consumer goods, the services purchased by households, and the change in the consumer price index tracks the price, it changes in price over time. And I mean, there's a whole lot of what it includes, but mostly those services and goods that we need on a day-to-day basis in order to live our lives in a normal fashion. So that's kind of what the consumer price index is.
Kind of vague there, huh?
They're kind of vague. But if you focus on a few components of the consumer price index that probably aren't weighed as much as they should be, housing,
right,
and fuel, those are the things that have really inflated. But yes, in terms of the travel, those prices, those tickets are definitely because they've got a lot of jets that aren't flying. They're having to pay people more to work on those jets, and they still have to keep staff around, and they have to pay to keep the airports open. And so there's the cost of all those things, all those variables, all those fixed things actually have gone up, and there's fewer people utilizing the services. So yeah, they got to distribute the cost to fewer people. So
right.
there you go. We're fine. Plus, you and I and other people are getting used to Zooming, and as you know, so many public meetings are, and we're Zooming also, as well as glad to have you all in person. As my own Rotary Club is, they still Zoom their meeting, and half the people are attending that used to. So
Half
I
on
think
Zoom or half on. Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that personal habits have changed because of the COVID, and that has caused a shift in the way we utilize goods and services, and therefore prices have gone up because people still have to make a living to support their business.
I mean, you're talking about home prices. I mean, those went up because of the lack of inventory, right? And if you look at, we talked about this on the radio, where if you look at the birth rate, the last drop of, when because everybody keeps going, is there a bubble? Is there a bubble? And one of the things I didn't look at when I do my lives about bubble or burst was the birth rates back in 2005, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those years when we built all those homes. They actually 30 to 31 years ago or 33 years ago back then had dropped drastically because of the birth rates, and they say it's because of the abortion, Roe versus Wade. But if you fast forward now, if you go back 33 years and the birth rates, we're at the beginning, the third year into this ridiculous increase of birth rates that is causing people to make formation of households at 30, 31, 32, 33. If you look at all those numbers, I don't know how we're going to catch up in the housing and how that inflational factor will not be there anymore.
Well, our kids are having kids, which is a good thing. That's a blessing. So that's increasing the birth rate. People are more inclined to have their child now instead of the other options that you referred to. And people are living longer, so the number of existing homes aren't coming back onto market as quickly because my parents are 92 and 88, and people like that are still living in their homes because healthcare has gotten better. So that kind of reduces the amount of new or homes coming back on the market. Yeah, we need to build more houses. And of course, on your side, much lower interest rates makes people able to pay more for their real estate. So real estate tends to have, as you know, a negative correlation to what real estates interest rates are doing. So as long as the interest rates are down, prices can stay high. But if interest rates went to 15 to 17%, like they were when I was first in the market for my first home a long time ago, doesn't seem like that long ago. Yeah, in 1984. I guarantee you housing prices would drop. I guarantee you that the market would slow down because people couldn't afford those kind of payments. So, and the Fed has been complicit in the rise of home prices too. I'm pretty sure about that. You did a podcast about people moving in and out of California and whether it was a net gain or loss. And you just came to determine that it was a net gain for California. But from what my readings are, that net gain to California are not people that are available to actually buy real estate. Most of these people that are coming here are looking for opportunity, economic opportunity. That's a nice way of saying, you know. So those that are looking for economic opportunity aren't necessarily in the position to buy homes, but we're seeing a major shift in the demographics within our state, that people are leaving the major metropolitan areas and moving to the more affordable areas, driving those prices up. A lot of the people from the more affordable areas are retiring and going, or just up and leaving and going to other states. So it's been rippling from the coast housing markets inland. And so it's everywhere. It's just not California. As you know, the people in Idaho and Nevada and Arizona are all complaining about us ruining their real estate markets. It's not us. It's just the natural remigration of people in the United States and lower interest rates.
Yeah,
and maybe the demand.
Right. Well, let's go with the lower interest rates. I brought this up how, with the fact that we have so many people in twos, right? I'll just say two interest rates. Currently, I think existing home sales are like 85% of the market, right? And the other part is new. Well, I have a feeling that in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to drop to 50%, because just like you said, people are living longer. Now we have low interest rates. Why do I want to sell a house that I have a ridiculously low payment on compared to what if I go buy something else? Or even if I need a bigger house, maybe we put bunk beds in that room and keep those kids in there so that my payment stays lower. You know what I mean? Because eventually you go through a process where you buy your starter home, you get your second home, you grow your kids through that one, and then you scale down into another house, right? Well, I think most people are going to buy that first one and then not necessarily scale up and then stay all the way through, just, unless they're moving for work or other stuff, just because of the fact of the interest rates and stuff.
Well,
What do you think?
I'm not going to disagree with you. I believe that the property tax issue in California kind of incentivizes people to stay in their homes, especially someone like me that's been there for 25, 30 years. At this point, if I downsize, the cost of maintaining the smaller property would probably be about the same as maintaining my larger property. So why wouldn't I just stay there and enjoy what I've put together and stay there as long as my health will allow me to be able to take care of it? And that's what I saw with my own parents. They stayed in their home until it was just too much to manage personally, and they just didn't want to deal with it. So people are living in their homes till their mid to late 80s. I have a client that's 93 that's living in his own house with his wife, and they're gardeners and just love living there. Why would they move? Well, why would they downsize? And it's really because you and I we're empty nesters. We have all this house that we put together to raise our families in, and now it's just two people. We don't need the big houses, but it's just economically disadvantaged to move. I mean, I'd move to a smaller community or houses closer together, or sharing walls with people, and I'm going to stay there as long as the health will allow. And so my son, who's looking for a larger house, has been priced out of the market because I won't budge, and neither will my peers or contemporaries. So we definitely need to build more houses.
Yeah,
definitely.
And the problem with that is then we need to lower the cost of all those houses for the permit costs, the other stuff that it costs, that because all those numbers are so ridiculous that people can't build affordable housing, right? I mean, when I mean affordable housing, I mean $300,000 to $500,000 homes. They just don't make any money off them compared to 500 plus. That's where they like to put that number, because
somebody has to pay for the public services that are going to be extended to those properties. There's those new buildings, those new developments, and I don't think I should have to pay for it. I think that if you're going to build a bunch of houses, then the developers should have to pay for those. And this is, my opinion. The developer should have to pay for those fees and pass them on to the to the new homeowners through the price of the property. Those fees are reflected in the price of the property, and the cities can't absorb those fees just to entice people to move into their town. They have to pay for those, extending the sewer and the cable and the telephone and all that stuff that has to be extended out there, and water services and streets and all that stuff has to be paid for by somebody. So it's the new homeowner.
Right.
I agree that it should be easier in some of these cities and counties have made it jumping through those hoops much more difficult, but somebody has to pay for it, and it shouldn't be everybody else, in my opinion. Now, I was reading an article in our local paper not too long ago about how Manteca has been able to accelerate the building process by making the permit process a lot easier than Modesto has or Stanislaus County. Well, I don't know what that process is, but there's costs affected. I think it has to do with the process, not so much the expenses that are associated with the permits. It's the process that needs to be made simpler. Maybe the permits may be a little bit cheaper too, but I'm not sure the city should be in the position of subsidizing housing by making the permit process cheaper. My
Well, here,
opinion.
I'll give you
But
right. Here's my problem with that. All right. So we're building our forever home in Twain Harte. They want
mhm.
16 grand for school fees. Why do I need to pay 16 grand for school fees?
Since you're
Federal, I
not going to
don't.
be utilizing
Well,
you're not
not
going to be
only that,
utilizing this.
I thought we pay for the schools through the tax purpose, through taxes and other things. Why do I have to pay more fees for the school? I'm just saying that's $16,000 per house. If you're building a complex, that's a lot of money per unit.
I feel like the thought is when you're in the new developments, they're going to have to provide new schools for those developments to feed those schools, and so they attach on those school fees to all new building or permitting processes or additions, and you're certainly not going to be utilizing those. So I'm not in
I don't
disagreement
know.
with you, but someone's got to pay for it. We should certainly utilize the inner city schools that we already have, because we have schools in Modesto, a lot that are really not even attended to. They're not even utilized because there's no one young living in that neighborhood. So those schools aren't even being utilized. So yeah, there's got
Yeah,
to
I don't
be
know.
a new understanding of how the school districts are moving children around. But yeah, school fees are a great example.
Right. So, all right, we kind of got off on a tangent there, and it's my
Yeah,
fault.
we like to do
Right.
that.
Yeah. So we are talking last about inflation and going forward, what do you think is going to happen with the markets and everything going forward? They're going to go up or they're going to go down. I know that, but I'm just saying there's this, all right. So I'm going to look real quick. All right. So I'm being told we're going to see a recession in 22, and then we're going to, from what's going on right now with all the stimulus packages that have been put out there, they're going to be used up, and we're going to go into recession. We're going to see interest rates lower than we've ever seen in 23, than ever, which I'm like, how can we see that? We just saw the lowest interest rates we've ever seen in our life, and now you're going to tell me they're going to go lower. I just don't know what's going to happen. And I'm going to add one more thing. Now with what we did with Afghanistan, and we just hit this vacuum, the question I see is I think we're going to see a war in 2 years from now. But let's talk about the markets.
Wow, that's a whole lot. The markets, are they going to go up or down? Yes.
Right.
Historically, the markets, if you look behind us, they've gone nothing but up, but that's not true either. There's time periods of where the market unwinds itself for a while and becomes a better purchase. The market has become a bit of a gaming system in the last 2 years. This is what I've observed, because there's a lot of new people, younger money coming in and investing, and they're gamers. And so with the advent of, Robinhood and some of these other trading platforms that are free, which is amazing to me, it makes the market actually a little bit more resilient than it has been in the past. So it seems as if these gamers are utilizing our market as a trading system, and whenever the market goes down a little bit, like right now, it's bouncing off its 50-day moving average. The market seems to, the gamers seem to, I think it's the gamers, or people like me that have a bunch of cash sitting on the side, are using these tiny little dips to get in, because we're almost afraid that it's just going to continue to do what it's doing, and I'm not going to participate. And money that's sitting in cash is losing money, even because it's pegged against inflation. And if I have a 5% inflation rate and my money is earning me nothing, I'm losing 5% a year because my purchasing power is less. So I do believe the market's going to continue to go up. I'm anticipating September, October, a 10% pullback, and we've positioned our clients for that. But the gamers have changed the thing a bit, and they're only 5% of the market. But if if 90% of the market or 80% of the market is buy and hold, in it for the long haul, and they're not trading, and you got 5% trading, they can have a serious impact in the short term. But having said that, they seem to take advantage of dips. And I think that has prevented us from having a major pullback in the market since the COVID debacle last year, or the scare last year. And by the way, on that note, the Fed doesn't have a whole lot of tools left to expand the economy. It's really been in Congress's hand by just giving away money. And so Congress has just been giving away money. And that's a lot of, and all that money, most all that money gets spent, and it has a lot of velocity, so it goes through the market. When the Congress quits giving away money, you might see a serious reason for recession, because people don't have any money to spend. Interesting and scary.
You were talking. I've seen so many people on TikTok say these stocks tomorrow. Reddit people, all these things, and they're doing. And then they're doing the system, and they're making. I've seen that change that has happened. But my question is going to be: is September usually a normal pullback period? That month in the year? Is that what happens?
Yeah, historically, okay, since the beginning, September is the most volatile month, and the pullbacks generally happen September, October. In my lifetime, in the 30 some odd years that I've been in this market, excuse me, I got an itch. It's been October, but I've seen it September, and it's rare that you have a September, October one of those 2 months where you don't have a 10% pullback. I've experienced all the major pullbacks in my life, except for, well, more so in October than September in my experience. But historically, September's been the
What day was
tough
Black
month.
Monday? What month?
October 19th.
October 8th of 87. Was it
1987? Yeah.
Yeah, 87. So
So
that's why I was like, you're saying October is the one you normally see. And I was like, I bet you he's talking about that one too.
Well, that's one of them, but there's been several Octobers since then, more Octobers. But that October was the one where we saw the major, 40% retracement. We haven't seen that in a while, since the COVID and the scare and the Y2K and the unwinding of the finance,
Right.
problem.
9/11. Luckily the systems were, systems are in place now to stop the crazy trading, so that.
Well, they halted for a while. They halted for an hour. It's kind of a cooling period to let cooler heads prevail. But a lot of this is computer trading, so it's all programmed in. If the market drops, if our portfolio drops by 10%, we sell 20% of it. If it drops by another 10%, we sell another 20% of it. These stops are just in, so the trades just occur automatically, and all we can do is sit and watch and have some cash set aside to take advantage of it if it occurs. Meanwhile, if it doesn't occur, we're disappointed because we're sitting on cash.
Right. But I've heard you say cash many times. So I assume that you believe, like most people, that cash is king to have there in case you want. And you don't mean cash wrapped up in rubber bands. You mean sitting in an account being able to be utilized, right?
If the world in an unwinding, obviously, it's great to have cash sitting around. An old friend of mine who's passed away years ago, he was a CPA, told me that it's called opportunity money. You got to have money to have opportunity money. Okay. So in our situation, we try to keep a little bit of opportunity money setting aside for our clients. And if a client has a whole lot of cash and they're not moving it, I understand. It's opportunity money. It's not money because they're afraid. It's not set aside because they're afraid. In our case, it's money set aside for opportunities.
No, I totally understand it, because in all these things we talked about historically on the radio, many people have made many people wealthy because they took advantage of the opportunities during these times. And you want to be around for these types of opportunities, so you want to be able to have that cash to set aside. And do you think Bitcoin's a good way to have your cash set aside?
I think exactly what I think of Bitcoin
I
and all
set
these
you
other
up.
currencies. You're setting me up. I think they are evil. I think they are a problem times to the fourth power. I think they're set aside to destroy other currencies, and it's a conspiracy from my perspective. I have invested in a stock that allows the transactions to occur, but I've never invested in any of the currencies themselves because I'm fearful of them.
Right. And you're fearful that you talked about this before. It's because of the fact that it can erode the dollar because of the fact that right now you have to buy like oil and stuff in dollars, right? Right, you want to explain a little
The,
bit,
the,
and then
the, the global currency is still the dollar, and these guys are trying to change that, and they probably will eventually. But it does make our ability to control our own destiny as a country. It makes us less effective. So because hey, well,
so
I don't need the
it's
dollar, I'll
like
buy Bitcoin.
it's like electing the wrong president. Um, Well, I'm no, I mean, the problem, if you look at, I mean, we're looking at China now, Russia, all these countries who are going, okay, we're here to help you, Afghanistan and all this stuff. And we've been there for 20 years trying to go after terrorists. And then now we just left all this weapons, billions of dollars worth of stuff, and people and other people help us. It's such a mess that how is that going to affect us going forward? And that's what I think a lot of people haven't looked at. How is that going to affect us as a nation going forward? When you have these other countries coming together and now they're up going to be against us, and we don't have that much because of what we've done. So I don't know. I don't know. You don't have
Well,
to answer that. Yeah, it
yeah,
wasn't
well,
really an answer. It was more of a
I do
statement.
know that the will of the people elected this president, and by golly, I hope they're right. And I have
I'm
an
not picking
opinion,
on
but
the
I'm not
president.
going
I'm
to voice
just,
it here.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm,
and and
my issue is you. I always say, like Obama, voting has consequences. You just have to make sure. And I was in the Navy, and I was in during different presidents. You can't say anything wrong about them, and I never did. I drop stupid stuff like right now because it's important to, I said this, I think I forget where I said this, but basically when you have somebody in office, it's like walking down a bad neighborhood when you're dealing with China and Russia at nighttime. You want to be a big person so that you don't get attacked. And I think that's one of our issues right now is we might not have the best person in place. I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. We just need to make sure that going forward we have the right people in place to protect us.
the will of the people need to be backing that
Right.
person, that community. We had a president years ago said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick," and now we're loud speaking and we don't carry a big stick. So a lot of people aren't willing to go to war and sacrifice their children, their sons, their daughters, their husbands to fight somebody else's war or to extend the will of the United States of America. Apparently, democracy doesn't work all over the world as much as we'd like it to,
Right.
and evil exists. So we need to be prepared to protect ourselves and our people and our interests globally against the evil that exists out there. And I agree with you in that point. And at this point, I don't believe our country is looked at as if we're in a position or have the will to do that. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
And we can leave it there. But looking forward, I have a problem with how that's going to affect us financially as a country, how it's going to affect us with the world as a country, and I don't know how we're going to get going on this. But all I got to say is, you know, more veterans need to go into office because they have found that veterans can work with anybody. They don't have to have the same opinion, and they can talk it out. So
Well,
that
they
I
have a common interest
yeah.
to avoid war because they understand what it's all about,
Right.
but not be fearful of it because it
You-
could be necessary. On that note, everybody's going to be buying weapons to defend themselves. So those defense contractors are probably going to make some more money one way or the other, right?
I think so. It's like I ran into a guy who, right when Afghan started, he was in the Navy and he was an EOD. He got out, he started a company, went from 50 employees to 500, sold it, and he's set for life. So that there's a lot of money to be made in war. So, and well, it's just like when we went through what we went through, right? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, right? Those are some of the best stocks to be in when you go into issues, right? So.
I own them.
Yeah, but we'll just leave it there. I don't want to be so basically all I'm saying is it's important to know where, voting has consequences. Make sure you know what you're voting for, read it. Know, and stand behind who you're behind, and don't just yell at each other. Let's work it out. So
Reasoning
yeah.
and do your own homework. Right.
Right. Yeah. Don't listen to somebody telling you should vote this way. You should know why you should vote that way.
And just call me. I'll tell you how to vote.
There you go. There you go. And Tom,
Yeah.
I thank you for being on the show today.
Certainly.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I thank you for when you come on the radio talk. You bring a lot of little nuggets, and and if you guys like this, please just follow us if you like what we do here. And again, thanks,
Yeah.
Tom. Stay right there.
So it's good.
Yeah, we were good. And I'm gonna get us off live. And so stay right there. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. If you're watching this after the fact, just do a hashtag replay.